Jeff Bridges and Melissa McCarthy head up our first couple shows. We've got 6 to talk about, though. It's TV, news, and reviews. And it starts right now. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to TV News and Reviews for the week. We've got 6 shows to talk about, including The Old Man, starring Jeff Bridges. John Lithgow is in that one as well. God's Favorite Idiot, which is a comedy with Melissa McCarthy. We've got a couple of shows based on books. The Summer I Turned Pretty and Dark Winds. We've also got a mockumentary show about gaming called Players, and another teenage vampire show, First Kill, over on Netflix. So we're going to talk about all of those. But first, of course, we'll turn to the news. If you are new around here, we do TV news and reviews every single week here on Dan Reviews It. And if you are not one of my subscribers, I would urge you to click that subscribe button down below there if you like what you're seeing. Would love to have you aboard as one of my subs. So let's talk about the TV news of the week. We've got some renewals and cancellations. And in our renewals actually is one of the shows we're going to be talking about this week. The Old Man on FX has already been renewed for season 2, just a few weeks into its run. For season 1, the debut had almost 1 million people, 975,000 people watched it live. And for a basic cable show these days, that is very, very good. And if you include the 3 days of delayed viewing, it's the most watched scripted cable series premiere in nearly a year and a half. So that is impressive. Obviously, people excited about Jeff Bridges starring in a TV show, and everybody is always excited to see John Lithgow in anything. You know, most of what he does is very solid. So no surprise there that got some good ratings, but that has been renewed. Officially ending now. This is an interesting one. Why Women Kill on Paramount Plus is done, even though a 3rd season had been greenlit, but it was never produced. And the suits at Paramount Plus. Now, at the time it premiered, it was CBS All Access. So I don't know if it was under a different. I don't know if when they changed to Paramount Plus, they switched like the head of the streamer or not. But whatever the case may be, it was originally greenlit for season 3, and now, forget it. We're not going to get any more of Why Women Kill. I really do want to check this show out at some point. So now that it's officially wrapped, and I think there's only maybe 20 episodes total, easy to get through. And it's an anthology anyway, so you could just kind of pick it up wherever. But that will not be happening at Paramount Plus. Speaking of things either renewed or canceled just weeks after their premiere, well, The Old Man was renewed. Tom Swift is already done at the CW. We just reviewed that. I think it was last week. And the CW is looking to sell. We've talked about this many times here in the TV News and Reviews, but I have a little more information about that than I have in the past. So Nexstar, which owns a bunch of the CW affiliates, is the leading candidate to purchase this. And according to the Wall Street Journal, in an article that just came out this week, in this sort of deal, Nexstar would take a 75% stake in the network, with Warner Brothers and Paramount each retaining 12.5%. They would split that remaining 25%. They're the two owners of it now, I think 50-50, Paramount and Warner Brothers. So, because originally it was the CW merged out of Warner Brothers network and the UPN. So, that's why they were both a part of that. So I don't know. But anyway, Tom Swift is the latest to be axed at the CW. That makes 11 shows now not returning for next season on the CW. That is a very, very big number. And Duncanville as well is over at Fox. That got 3 seasons, believe it or not. I feel like I just sort of reviewed the pilot for that maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. But indeed, we've had 3 seasons of Duncanville already, and it is now officially over because the last episode of this current season landed on June 26th. And now we will get no more of that. It only got 650,000 viewers per episode, and that's after, I believe, 7 days. Now, that doesn't include streaming, like if you're watching it on the Fox app or on Hulu or something. But in terms of watching it either on demand or DVR'd or live, it got just about 650,000 viewers per episode. That is not many. All right, so the only other thing we have to talk about is a couple of things in reboots and spin-offs this week. So the Field of Dreams show, which was going to be headed up by Mike Schur from Parks and Recreation and The Good Place, this will not go forward at Peacock. They got a direct-to-series order in 2021, so they were hoping big things would happen. But for whatever reason, the article I read did not seem to indicate why this fell apart. But the Field of Dreams show is over at Peacock now. And this one is... one that I am not looking forward to because I didn't like the original, but it had a lot of fans. It ran, I believe, 8 years. Who's the Boss is getting a sequel series. It's coming to Amazon's Freevee. Alyssa Milano and Tony Danza are both returning, and the plot is basically that Samantha is now a single mother living in the house where she grew up. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, and it may not because I watched this show very, very sporadically. I don't really care for Who's the Boss, but I did end up watching the series finale back when that was on, which was, I think, 1992. So we're looking now 30 years ago. So my memory could be faulty, but I believe in the last episode, Tony and Angela, who was the Judith Light character, did finally get together. Spoiler alert for Who's the Boss 30 years ago. But even, it's not really a spoiler alert because I'm not positive that's what happened, but that's kind of what I remember happening. So Judith Light is not signed on for the new show, but she is very active. She always pops up in different things. So she could be at some point down the line, but it was her house. That's what I find interesting about the premise. Samantha lived there with Tony. Tony was the housekeeper. But it was Angela's house. So, I'm sure we'll find out what happened, but, Catherine Hellman, who was probably the best part of that program, has passed on a couple of years ago, so she obviously won't be a part of it. And then no word yet on the guy who played Jonathan. What was his name? Danny Pintaro. He will not be a part of this yet, as far as I know, either. So far, just Tony Danza, Alyssa Milano. I could care less, or couldn't care less, whatever the phrase is, but I didn't really like Who's the Boss. But look, I will watch this and review it for you. Maybe it will get better over time. It was just so corny back in the day, all the shows that surrounded it were so much better, Growing Pains and Roseanne and even Home Improvement, which I don't particularly care for either. I would say was still funnier than Who's the Boss. But in any event, if you're a Who's the Boss fan, this one is for you. It will be coming to Amazon Freevee in a spin-off sequel. All right, so that's it. Not much news this week. Let's turn it over immediately to the reviews. We're going to start with The Old Man, which is on FX, which means you can also watch it on Hulu. We love that. And the first season only has 7 episodes. About half of it is wrapped already. And then, like I mentioned earlier in news, it has been renewed for season 2 already. And so the basic premise is that Jeff Bridges, who I think has never been a series regular before. I could be wrong about that. But I think he is one of the holdouts, sort of. Not holdouts, but I don't believe he has done a regular role on a broadcast or network series. I could be wrong, but I don't think he has. But he seems like the kind of guy that would do a True Detective or something, or like a Fargo season, So maybe he has, and I'm just forgetting. But anyway, he plays Dan Chase, who is a former CIA operative, who is currently living off the grid in New York, but he kills an intruder that has broken into his home, and afterwards he is forced into hiding. However, he ends up on the run because John Lithgow's character, Harold Harper, who is an FBI assistant director for counterintelligence, they want to use him to bring in Dan Chase due to a connection they had from the Soviet war. So they have a little bit of a history together. This show is intense. Like a lot of the current dramas on broadcast and streaming that are in it for the long haul, the long form stuff, you don't really get to the crux of a lot of the story until towards the end of the first episode. So almost nothing I said really is relevant to the first half hour of the pilot. But that is sort of the premise of the show, so I think it bears talking about, so you know what you're kind of going into. But most of what I said doesn't even happen until kind of the last half of that pilot episode. But look, Jeff Bridges, I think he has gotten in recent years into this very sort of garbled type of speech pattern. He talks like this, and he's got the sort of the marbles in the mouth type of thing. But He's not really doing that here. A little bit. He's a softer spoken character. But I think that's important for his character and sort of the history and the background. We see in the first couple of scenes his daughter is trying to make sure he's okay and that he's staying active. And, we get the sense that, oh, he's this feeble old man. And then as we see the intruder come in, we learn, oh, well, that's sure not the case. There's a rich history here. Let's explore it. And then the John Lithgow character gets involved, and we do just that. We find out about both of them and their histories. It's so far a very interesting series. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm sort of bummed out that we're only going to get 7 episodes. It seems to be like shrinking and shrinking, right? Back in the broadcast network days, we would get 26 episodes sometimes, even as late as like the 90s and the early 2000s. Then we've pared that down to like 24, 22. 20s is pretty standard now for broadcast even. But streaming started out with like 13 episode seasons for Orange is the New Black and Grace and Frankie. Now they're down to like 8. So I am kind of sad that we're only going to get 7 episodes of this, but at least it got renewed, so we'll have more coming up. I really like this. It's intense. The writing is great. You don't know where it's going. And the two of them just going back and forth. And so far in episode 1, we've only seen them talking on the phone with each other. Do they actually share scenes together in the future? I hope so, because they're so great, and who knows what the chemistry was. Usually with scenes on the telephone, you're not even really talking to the other person, so they probably shot them, without being in the same room. But I'm excited for future episodes where hopefully the two do get together and get to do a few scenes together, because talk about sort of masters of the craft, right? John Lithgow can do anything from comedy to drama. Bridges, you can say the same about. I would say Lebowski is certainly a comedy, but a lot of his other stuff has been more heavy and more dramatic. So this is a nice vehicle for both of these actors. And there's some other people coming up that I have not seen yet in the show, but Aaliyah Shawkat from Arrested Development is going to be in some episodes. Amy Brenneman, I guess, plays the daughter, so we saw her briefly. But in any event, I'm enjoying this so far. Really good stuff on FX. I'm going to leave The Old Man for now with an A-. All right, up next, we will go to Netflix. God's Favorite Idiot is the show, and we're actually going to get 16 episodes of this. They're doing that Netflix split thing where we get 8 episodes now and 8 episodes later, but they're calling it the first season, and I guess that's because they're going to premiere the other 8 episodes just later in the year, so it's just within a few months of each other. But this was at number 1 on the Netflix TV chart for a couple of weeks, and it makes sense. Melissa McCarthy obviously has a huge fan base, and Ben Falcone, her husband and sometime collaborator, also stars in this with her, and he created it, and he, I believe, wrote all of the episodes as well, which to me is usually not a good sign. I find that the weakest Melissa McCarthy movies are usually the ones where he is heavily involved. However, I will say this was a bit of a surprise for me. I did not dislike this one as much as I thought maybe I could have, just knowing the history of the two of them working together. But this is a unique one. There's a lot going on here. It is a workplace comedy a la The Office, and they really are striking some chords with, I think specific members. Like, not that the actors are the same, but they're taking sort of those archetypes from The Office and planting them here. But there's this big, lightning storm, and the Ben Falcone character, Clark, gets struck and all of a sudden has the ability to glow. And so his friend from work, Emily, who is played by Melissa McCarthy, or I guess it's Amelie because she references the movie Amelie in this show. She discovers this facet of his life, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it. So that's kind of the premise there. The reason that I think this is better than maybe some of the movies that the two of them have done together. For example, he and her wrote the movie Tammy together, which I think is one of her weaker films. And one of the recent Netflix movies they did too, or no, it wasn't Netflix, it was HBO Max, I think. Super Intelligence, it was called. That was pretty bad as well. But Thunder Force on Netflix, which I liked, I don't think he had anything to do with. So usually his presence signifies something not great. But here, it's palatable. I don't think his acting is that great. I don't think he's particularly that funny, but the script is better than most of his scripts. And I don't know if that's maybe because we're getting more time with the characters, so we can flesh them out a little bit more. I'm not sure if that's perhaps part of it, but it could be. I could totally see that. But in any event, the workplace stuff, I think, is where this kind of shines the most, but that's also where it's the most generic. We have, this office idiot that Melissa McCarthy just hates, and it's like, Michael Scott and Toby going back and forth on The Office, or, everybody ganging up on Jerry in Parks and Rec. And we have no reason for it. There's no history with the two of them. I wish they would have given us something in that first episode. She just launches right into it. And some of the lines are funny and some of the roasts are funny. But I would have liked a little maybe more background. And this is maybe the problem with only having so many episodes, is that they have to cram in more jokes than character development sometimes with these comedies. But I do think this worked better for me than a lot of the Ben Falcone, Melissa McCarthy mashups. I did enjoy some of the humor in it. And I do think the Office stuff is definitely where it shines the most. But when we take it out, and when Melissa McCarthy and Ben's characters are just kind of, doing things, figuring out why he's glowing, or in the park taking a walk and having a discussion, I think it falls a bit flat there. But I think it's got like a 26% or something on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it's back, that far down. I'm going to leave God's Favorite Idiot with a C-. It's certainly not among the best comedies out there, but I was bracing for something even worse for sure. All right, next is The Summer I Turned Pretty. This is based on a popular novel by Jenny Han, and ahead of the season premiere, this was already renewed for a second season. So we're already going to get more of this on Amazon. And the basic premise is that we see these two different families who always go on a summer vacation together. And Lola Tung plays the star here, or she is the star here, plays the lead character, Isabel Belly Conklin. And Belly is reuniting with her friend's brothers, Jeremiah and Conrad. And because of that, she's found herself in a love triangle for the summer. She is grown from what she was, a little wallflower last summer, but now she's starting to blossom into a woman. I think these kids are probably about 15 or 16, and they are just, having the summer of their lives while the mothers deal with their own issues. I think they are 16. I think they actually might mention that in the first episode. But in any event, this is everything that I want a teenage romance show to be. This has got shades of 90210, which started as a summer series. So we saw a lot of, summertime beach stuff. The OC is another one that sort of started in the summer. And of course, it's always summer at the OC because the weather's so nice. So this is exactly the kind of show that I want. It's a little bit soapy, but not too much so. It doesn't lean so heavily into it that the characters are unbelievable, or even unlikable. Sometimes you have to have like a villain in those kinds of shows. And I don't really think there is one here. This is just so far kids being kids at the beach and learning what's going on and all of that kind of stuff. And so I like that aspect of it. There, I think, may be a love quadrangle soon enough, because there's somebody in the first episode that I think, this could be a potential suitor as well for Belly. So we may get more than a love triangle, a love quadrangle as the series goes along. I don't know. I'm not positive how many episodes we're going to get so far. Although, you know what? It's on Amazon, so usually they put them all up at once. So it's possible all of them are up. There's 7 up right now, and yeah, it looks like because it's on Amazon, that's probably all of them for this season. And that's kind of unfortunate. Again, I want some more episodes here, but look, in this day and age, there's so much TV, there's so much to catch up on. I'm always behind. So I guess it's just as well maybe we don't get as many episodes for some of these shows. But this, to me, because it's not a self-contained story, because it's not a miniseries, could easily get, the full 13 episode treatment or something and give us more of these characters. It's written very, very well. I think it is how, teenagers of the day are speaking without alienating older viewers. They're not going totally in on the crazy lingo of the moment, but certainly social media is a part of these kids' lives, and some of the dialogue and the messaging that goes along with that is present here. But it certainly is palatable for somebody like me who grew up with 90210 and shows like that, Doogie Howser, of kids coming into their own, as I was. I was 14, 15 when those shows started. So I really like this a lot. I mean, this is exactly what rom-coms should be doing, both movies and TV. Likable characters, realistic situations, and realistic people. I really can't hit that point home enough, that not too many shows that deal with younger people, especially, I guess I review so many like CW shows where it's just everybody's so impossibly pretty, and like, yes, this is called The Summer I Turned Pretty, but I would not call this lead actress a knockout, gorgeous, perfect 10 kind of person. She's a regular person. And I like that about it. So yeah, I like this show a lot. I could use some more episodes for sure. But I will give The Summer I Turned Pretty an A minus. I'll give it an A minus. But I'll tell you what, this could be stronger than that by the end of the season once I watch all 7 episodes. But I'll give it an A minus for now. All right, Dark Winds is next. This is over on AMC and AMC Plus, and this is another very short one, just 6 episodes for the first season. But they've already renewed this one for a 6-episode second season. I think I mentioned that last week, and that's going to premiere in 2023. And this has got some nice firepower behind it in the producer chairs. You've got George R.R. Martin and Robert Redford as 2 of the head producers on this. And this basically takes place in the 1970s, follows 2 Navajo police officers, Jim Chi and Joe Leaphorn. And the first season is primarily based on 2 books in this series. I mentioned we had a couple of book adaptations, and this is one of them. So there's a Leaphorn and Chi novel series, and first season is based on 2 of those books. Called Listening Women and People of Darkness. But essentially, this is about one mystery, one big overarching mystery for each season. Now, personally, if there's a theme to this episode, I think it's that we need more episodes of things that we like, right? It sucks when there's only 6 episodes or 8 episodes of something and you want a full season. But this is the kind of show that, to me, lends itself to having a more or a less serialized, I should say, plot line where you could just pick up an episode, like a Magnum PI, for example, where okay, there's a little bit of a character through line, but for the most part, each episode you could just kind of pick it up wherever. And we have a lot of those sort of in the more like CSI, NCIS type of drama, but this is a different cop show. We're really looking at sort of the Native American plight, certainly in the 70s, but it still continues today, 50 years later, for sure. We know that. But it has that sort of edge to it where we're looking at things through that lens. And oddly, I read that this was getting a little bit of criticism from some Navajo communities saying, this isn't really representative and whatnot. But what's interesting is the writer's room, and I think some behind the scenes people as well, maybe some other producers, but the writer's room is entirely made up of Navajo people. So, look, far be it for me to say whether it's authentic or not, but I think it's interesting that they do have a whole writer's room of Navajo people, and yet Navajo groups are a little bit up in arms about it as well. So I don't know where the truth really lies here. I far be it for me to say it, but as compelling television, it certainly is that. I love these characters. I wish we did get maybe, a 10 or 12 episode run where each episode is a different kind of crime that they're taking on. I think these characters, and it makes sense since it is a book series, obviously, the characters lend themselves to that. But I think this is a show that really could have gotten away with that. Because I feel like there's so many, almost everything these days is so serialized, and you have to, which makes sense in the era of streaming. You can watch everything from episode 1 on. But I don't think every show needs to be that way. In fact, it was one of my great cheers for the latest Star Trek, I should say, not Star Wars, but Strange New Worlds. it seems like it's going to be, a sort of episode by episode thing where you can just kind of pick it up. And I love that, even though it's on a streaming site. But they could have done that here for sure. But I love the actors here. Zan McLaren is Joe Leaphorn, and Kiowa Gordon plays Jim Chi, and I love their dynamic together. I'm interested to see where these stories kind of go. And all right, if we want to just do one sort of big murder mystery, 6 episodes in, but to me, like, it dragged just a little bit, like, which is what got me thinking, oh, you know what, instead of having this overarching theme for 6 episodes, maybe they could have split it up a little bit. So that's, really my main complaint is that it's a little bit slow, but I love, the authenticity, what it seems to me, of this time period and this group of people, in this culture. So I leave Dark Winds with a B+. I think it's a good start to this show. All right, next we are going to talk about Players. This is on Paramount Plus. It is a mockumentary series created by the same guy that did American Vandal, which I didn't see, but I hear nothing but good things about. I hear it's so funny. His name is Dan Perrault, and Tony Senda. I guess they both created American Vandal, and they're both creating this one. So this follows Fugitive Gaming, which is a fictional esports team that does League of Legends. And so we go through it with the mockumentary style of following these people's lives. They do like interviews to camera, that kind of thing. We've seen it, for years with different shows like The Office, but a lot of Office mentions today. But in any event, we have sort of the 17-year-old rookie who's, kind of like this cocksure kid, and he thinks he's real great. His name is Organism, played by DeJour Jones. And then you've got the veteran who's Cream Cheese, and in esports, a veteran can't be that old, right? So he's only 27. And his closest friend and coach, played by Eli Henry, is here as well. And so the three of them have to figure out how to, merge these talents together to make it to the championships. And as we go on, like, I just watched the first 2, but as we go on, I imagine, the road to the championships is going to be kind of where we end the season. And then, I don't know, I feel like American Vandal, I think, got 2 seasons, right? And I think each one was a different sort of crime. So maybe after this season, if it gets renewed, we do either a different game that they're playing, like instead of League of Legends, it's Halo or something. I don't know, but I have kind of mixed feelings about this. I didn't love it, and it certainly didn't blow me away with the humor either. But I like the way the characters are written. They do seem very realistic, and you sort of do have, or at least I did, certain feelings about the different characters, and the humor, for me, it reminded me of like trying to do what Mythic Quest does, which is over on Apple TV Plus, and that's so funny. And that's not really a mockumentary, that's just a straight ahead comedy series. It's a workplace comedy about the video game world, but that's more in the designing and creating the game. This is more about, obviously, the players of the game. So it's not quite in the same zone, really, but as somebody who does not play these types of games, I actually learned a lot, I feel like, from the Raven's Quest show in terms of the actual development of games, and from everything I've read, it's fairly accurate. But here, I don't know. I can assume that some of the things they're talking about are accurate, but a lot of the jargon just went right over my head. I have to imagine if you are a League of Legends fan, a League of Legends player, you'll get a lot more of these references than I did, and none of them are really explained because it's in the mockumentary style, so they are assuming that, anybody watching this documentary show will already know, these players, and will already know what's going on. But yeah, I like knowing the history of the players and kind of finding out, where Cream Cheese, where his kind of history is, and the names are silly, I'll give them that. But I wish I laughed more. It didn't strike me as that funny particularly, and maybe as the characters, we get to know them a little more, maybe I will see the humor a little more in it. For the first couple episodes, I just wasn't there on the humor. But I like the characters. I like where the story is kind of going. And I assume, like I said, we're going to lead into sort of the championships. Maybe will be the last couple of episodes. And by that point, we'll know these guys pretty well. And I think this is actually getting a handful of episodes. We keep talking about all the different episodes, but I think this is going to give us 10 episodes. Usually, if it's like Apple TV Plus, if it's Paramount Plus, usually we do get still a 10 episode season. Thank you for that. So yeah, hopefully we'll get the full 10 on this. But for now, I will leave Players with a B minus. All right, and finally, we will wrap up with First Kill. This is over on Netflix. Emma Roberts is one of the executive producers, and of course, she knows from this type of thing from being on Scream Queens, one of the stars of that show. But in terms of the stars of this show, I didn't really know them. Elizabeth Mitchell was on Lost. She's one of the older people here. But this show is more about the youngsters, so she's in it, but I wouldn't say it's focusing mainly on her. But there's a legacy of vampires here, and Juliet, played by Sarah Catherine Hook, is the lead, of this show. She is the main teenage vampire. She wants to take her place among the legacy vampires in her family, so she's got to get her first kill. But she loves a vampire. What are we going to do? And her name is Juliet, the main character. So yes, this is a Romeo and Juliet sort of nod, but also you've got obviously shades of Buffy the Vampire Slayer here. We're not going to escape that at all. But this has a little bit of a more modern twist. The vampire she's in love with happens to be a woman, so there is that sort of thread as well. This is, a gay vampire love story. But look, when you strip away all sort of the nuts and bolts, it's not that much different from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as we dove a little more into those seasons and she fell in love with Angel. First season she was just kind of kicking everybody's butt and slaying the vampires, but then we get to the love story, in the subsequent seasons. Here, of course, we don't get that timeline because it's on streaming, so there's only so many episodes, so we get right into the love story. And it certainly is a pale Romeo and Juliet imitation as well. I mean, we've seen that story so many times, and we've seen it done better, almost every time than this. The dialogue here is not good. The acting is even worse. I think this is like a CW light. It's not even quite good enough to be CW. This is definitely, I think, for lovers of vampire stories only and no one else. I think, for me, who is like, I could take or leave a vampire story, it's certainly been overdone in the last 20 years, really, since, Twilight, I guess, broke big 15 years ago. But yeah, to me, just the acting in the script is not there. Everything's kind of, a pale imitation of something much better. So for this, I can't give it a very good grade. I leave First Kill with a D. All right, so a couple to check out this week, a couple to avoid for sure. I think some of those A minuses could easily be A's the further along we go. Specifically, I think The Old Man and Dark Winds. They're really... They could be something special. I anticipate we'll be hearing more about them perhaps on my year-end list. I almost went an A on both of them, and I'm like, I got to save my A's for really the best of the best. But The Old Man, I'm waiting for that scene with Lithgow. The first scene with Lithgow and Bridges together, boom, it's going to be amazing. I think that will kind of be what puts me over the edge, as long as the writing can keep up. Which it has so far in these first couple episodes. So, all right. Well, that will do it for TV news and reviews. We didn't have much news this week, so a little bit of a shorter show this week. But I'll be back next week with more TV news and reviews for you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you then. Bye.